Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Semiconductor Executive Program. Thank you for all joining in today. I'm just going to give you a brief outline. Let me just share my screen. It's been a while since these webinars have been the motto of the day. The Semiconductor Executive Program is an initiative that we are driving here at the ISIG, the International Semiconductor Industry Group. And at the end of the day, the initiative is to guide the future leaders and leaders in the market to conduct strategic decision-making at the executive level on pinpoint elements that need to be driven for smooth transitions throughout our careers. So starting off initially the SEP chapter, the goal at the end of the day is to create a dedicated cohort that will gradually grow over the years to come. Thank you for all joining in, because at the end of the day in life, as we know, the best of people are the ones that are the early adopters. And at the end of the day, the key message that we would like to deliver over the years to come within this executive program is to create a trusted community, a cohort whereby leadership or etiquettes or methodologies are spread throughout. So what's the most important thing is to clarify how this program will work today. So our goal is to try to create a monthly initiative of a 19-minute virtual session. And the discussions will cover strategic decision-making, leading through uncertainty, workforce strategy, AI's impact on leadership, geopolitical shifts, mentorship for tier 2, tier 3 companies, and building scalable high-performance team through cohort-based learning. Now, the SEP experience will conduct of the following methods. It is to connect and engage with global leaders in a safe space. The other key element is a matter of generosity, where learning will be shared and provide also support and mutual exchange of ideas via cohort-based learning, where we will intend to implement mentorship as well. And last but not least, of course, grow, apply shared learnings. And that is the key message or the key mission that we are looking at abiding. So getting straight into it, I think at the end of the day, what one needs to take into consideration is that imagine you're a CEO on a long flight after 14 hours of meetings across time zones. Your board expects a decision by the morning on a major acquisition, investment, or a customer. You're exhausted, you haven't eaten properly, and your brain is chemically running on fumes. Now, the question that I want you all to think of is, what kind of leadership shows up? Is it your best self, or is it your survival self? And this is where neuroscience matters. And the understanding of neuroscience, it actually helps us understand what's really going on inside that decision-making machinery, and therefore understand how to lead even when your brain is, of course, under pressure. So one key thing that I would like to share is that after my presentation, and then Dr. Richard will follow up after myself, is that we'll have breakout rooms where a group of you will be put into certain rooms and you'll be discussing how you can apply these measures or what methodologies that you're not putting into place with peers in the industry who are involved in this webinar. Now, on to the next slide. Now, here's the science. The science is very straightforward. It's state, resilience, and agility. Let's take a very sincere example that we go through on a day-to-day basis. Think about a VP, for example, your director, for example, walking out of a tough customer meeting. Mentally, they feel attacked, cornered, or anxious. Now, the situation of this mindset is that that's not strategy, and that's biology. And their state of mind and body has obviously shifted. So resilience is not about being bulletproof. What it's actually about is recovery speed. And agility is about switching gears fast, where you go from defensive to creative mode. And the most effective leaders know how to reset their state in real time. This can be done in terms of 3 elements. And this is all, by the way, these are teachings from Stanford University. It's either through a simple deep breath, a short walk, or a pause before replying. Now, let's get into the biology side of things. I'll give you a very straightforward example. Say your CFO challenges your idea in front of your team. What happens to you is that in your brain, your amygdala fires off. And the amygdala is there and it's designed when threat is actually detected. What then happens is your heart rate spikes, muscle tense, and then the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical calm part, goes offline. So what happens is by human nature, you go into one simple zone. You want to defend. But if you pause for a beat, and then you let the wave of cortisol, which is a hormone we will talk about later on, pass through the body, that pause is what reactivates your prefrontal cortex. And in that space, you can then respond instead of reacting. And that is a mark of true executive composure. So sometimes we get in situations, we're in maybe team meetings, right? On a day-to-day basis, customer meetings or whatnot. You may have left a meeting thinking these phrases, right? And if you summarize these phrases, whether it's, I really struggle to articulate my thoughts, I feel like I can't get my point across, I know what I want to say, but it just doesn't come out right, or there's a disconnect between what's going on in my head and what actually comes out. What you're trying to say is that, why did I say that? And that's not what I meant, right? That's actually your language centers shutting down because your emotional brain took over. And one thing that you need to take into consideration that it happens to everyone, even the most eloquent leaders. I mean, we've all heard Trump say some crazy stuff, but under stress or under stress, what happens is his communication collapses. Leaders who can manage this, perhaps by a simple process of simply slowing their breath, or even saying, let's revisit this tomorrow. What that actually helps is one simple methodology. It buys back clarity. Now, what I want to show you all is an X framework, right? So what the X framework looks like is that you have the neurochemicals scattered, right? It's always mind and body, both states connected. So, for example, when you're facing layoffs, or if you're facing crisis, or you're facing an angry client, what happens to the body is that your mind, actually, you enter type 1, which is threat avoidance. And what happens is you have this rush of cortisol flooding your system, risk tolerance drops, and then your focus totally narrows. And now in contrast with that is type 2. Type 2 is the opportunity seeking mode. And this is basically whereby you are brainstorming new strategy and you're exploring different solutions. And that, surprisingly enough, gives that dopamine driven curiosity. Now, the challenge is how do you get from one to the other when you are in a deep situation? So this is the X framework, okay? And what I'm going to show you here is basically how you map the states within this framework. Left side, pleasantness. Down below, physiological arousal. Okay. And I mean physiological arousal based on hormones. So let's pick a great example that we all face on a day-to-day basis. Think of a Monday morning. You come in, or you just come back from holiday. The first thing is you have an inbox full. You maybe missed sleep. Maybe you had some stressful school run with the kids. What happens is that your brain's arousal level is very high, but the pleasantness is low. So that puts you in type 1. Now, let's picture at the end of the week. It's Friday afternoon. Maybe you closed a few deals, or you closed that deal on the day, or you did a great project. What happens is you're energized, you're excited, which therefore gives you higher arousal and high pleasantness. And that's type 2. Now, the best way of leading is by engineering these states within the teams or situations that you're in. So you can be holding stand-ups mid-morning when you have your dopamine peaks, or delaying tense discussions with someone that you're uncomfortable dealing with until everyone's calm. Now, if I go a little bit more further with regards to a nuanced view, take an example. You have someone yourself, you're under pressure, and you might rationalize, let's wait, it's risky, this is not the right time. That's a type 1 brain rationalization type of fear. But if you're someone who operates closer to point A, which is the comfort side, then what happens is that you can actually pivot faster into curiosity. Sorry, this is the actual side. So, for example, you're in a heated customer call and immediately you feel defensive. Instead of pushing back, what you do is you take one slow breath and you ask, what's important for you right now? That question signals calm and reopens collaboration. Now, what happens is operating closer to comfort means you recover faster from emotional punches, just like a shock absorber. Now, it's very important to understand that the importance of being homeostatical, close to the comfort zone, especially in situations that are quite tense. Now, if we look at this graph, as you can see from this side of view or whatnot, the rational brain will just rationalize in the type 1 mindset. And of course, that can either kick the can down the road, or the preference is to stick to the past because you're used to it, you're familiar with it. But the type 2 is when you come back with a different point of view. Now, this might sound a little bit complicated and you'll get a bit understanding later on. But what I want to emphasize is that what you look at here is how to stay at point A. That is the main thing that you need to take out from this discussion. You're on business travel, for example. Myself, for example, I've done about 300,000 miles this year. Jet lag is just the way of living. You've got a major board meeting call or breakfast at 8 a.m., for example, but you can't control the time zones. But what you can do is actually control your chemistry. So that's why methodologies whereby taking a short workout before these type of meetings, or if you do like a 10 minutes of slow breathing before this type of meeting, what happens is you boost that serotonin. And this might come as bad news to some on the call, but avoiding that extra drink, for example, at dinner, yes, it might relax you. But what happens is it actually wrecks your REM sleep. So these aren't wellness tips that I'm trying to share out there. What they are is pretty much straightforward work performance insurance. Now, looking at this type of layout, and this is an element of how your body plays, right? With serotonin, the way to boost it is by sleep, fitness, diet. To lower the cortisol, this is where naps, meditation, breathing, laughter, vitamin D, and alcohol takes its place. But one effect of all these factors is how HRV, your heart rate variability, plays. So if you ever realize, like sometimes, I mean, if you carry one of these sensors that I have on my forearms, for example, if you're ever in a tense situation, your heart rate variability goes over the roof. But if you're in a calmer situation, your heart rate variability lowers down. So for example, you can try this out. You go for a run, for example, heart rate variability goes bonkers. But once straight after the run, you go for a shower, you relax, or you sit down and take a few deep breaths, immediately your heart rate variability decreases. Now, the next part I want to talk about is actually how age plays a role. So let's say, for example, it's 5 p.m., your serotonin and dopamine levels drop. That's why late day decisions often feel heavier. That is purely the reason why. And you may have heard the situation, I mean, the saying is sleep on it. Sometimes they say, don't make a decision in the afternoon. If you get a decision in the afternoon, how about one sleeps on it? And then the next morning, you make a different decision and a much more wiser decision. You ever notice as well that board meetings or team meetings get very tense right before dinner? That is simple biology explaining it. And, sometimes what one could consider, and something that I've been applying with my team, is moving key discussions to mornings when the brain is more curious and less defensive. But what if you can't? That is the situation that we most get into sometimes. Then manage the state. As I mentioned in the previous slide, a 5-minute break, a 5-minute walk, or even laughter, I don't know, you can watch something on YouTube or whatnot, whatever you use, to reset the neurochemistry enough to re-enter curiosity. Now, this is kind of the state of life. The older you get, the more so the serotonin and the dopamine drops. And that's why it's even more important to keep an eye out on how you manage the state of mind, whether it's the serotonin side or the dopamine side. Now, if we look at the neurochemical factors that you see here, these are pretty much straightforward elements of how the body changes. So if you can take a good example is you're in a hotel, exhausted after back-to-back customer meetings. The temptation is a nightcap and emails in bed. But the ideal thing would be to stretch, drink water, sleep. What happens is your serotonin resets overnight. And that is why the deep REM sleep is so important. And then the next morning, you feel like a different person. So these micro habits, whether it's walking between meetings, making sure you're well hydrated, are what keeps a leader, no matter what they're doing, or anybody that's in the industry, mentally sharp on road. So this is a great example. This is actually a genuine research at Stanford University, whereby they analyzed people's bodies in terms of blood taking, how it was in the morning and how it was at the end of the day. And what happens is that the serotonin throughout the day goes all the way down. And also you get this kind of like, if you see that middle bump in the middle, that's lunchtime. And that is where the dopamine boosts up. So this is, very, very straightforward explanation of how the mind processes and how the mind works throughout the day. Now, so basically, this is an overview. You want to take a screenshot of this, take it. This is pretty much the commandments of how to play around with the serotonin side in your body. Okay. Very straightforward initiatives that one must take into consideration on a day-to-day basis. Now, I want to talk about heart rate variability. Here's a practical one. Let's say it's before a critical meeting, right? As I mentioned, check your smartwatch or check one of these things that you've got on your wrists, maybe. If heart rate variability is low, it means that your body is in fight or flight mode. And that's not the time for high stakes conversations. A high heart rate variability leader, for example, would stay composed even when challenged publicly because their nervous system has the flexibility. And you can see that playing through the X framework that you can see on the left side and on the right side. And just as a summary, this is an overview of how you would want to boost your heart rate variability. Picture this, another great example you can take into consideration. You just got an upsetting email from your line manager. Before replying, take 3 rounds of box breathing. Box breathing is a very simple process that we can try right now. It's basically you inhale in 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, and then exhale 5 seconds. If you do it right now, you'll sense a difference in your body. And you'll feel the difference instantly because your jaws are loosened, thinking widens, and then, of course, the most important part is empathy returns. And that's the space where influence lives, not through reactivity, but through regulation. So when heart rate variability is high, you're basically in your natural state. Now, this is a great example that one can use in terms of through breathing interventions. And as I've written down here, on days when your heart rate variability is high, your mind and body will be predisposed to manifesting excellence. It's of no wonder that, if you run, I mean, I hate running, but I do it. When you're running, you come up with incredible ideas. When you're in the shower, the ideas start popping through. It's all because of the heart rate variability. Very, very simple biological elements connected to the mind and body. So, some parting thoughts. If you've ever had a week so packed with meetings and flights and travel that you stop thinking strategically, always remember that you're in survival mode and that cortisol is running the show at the end of the day. So when we glorify busyness, what tends to happen is that we actually sacrifice creativity. And the smartest leaders schedule the white space thinking time. And I owe gratitude to my professor, a great professor, and this is where I learned most of his stuff from at Stanford University. And he said 2 specific phrases that left my head circling because I wasn't aware of this information. He said, if you think you don't have the time, busy is the new stupid. And another phrase that he left us with was, and put your oxygen mask before helping others. Because after every crisis, I've seen incredible leaders who recover fastest share one trait. They care for themselves first. So you can't pour from an empty cup. So at the end of the day, if you're leading, 10 employees, 20 employees, 50, 100, 1,000, your energy ripples through the culture. So taking time to rest, to laugh, to work out, or walk isn't an element of indulgence. It's actually leadership hygiene. So thank you all. And just remember, the next time you're traveling, tired, and about to make a decision, pause. Ask, am I in type 1 or am I in type 2? Am I reacting or am I responding? Because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, leadership isn't actually about control. It's actually about chemistry. So when you manage your state, you lead with clarity, not adrenaline, because in the end, the most powerful leadership that I have witnessed throughout my career is always a calm leader. Now, Maria will, my colleague, by the way, Maria, thank you for setting this up. You've done an absolute remarkable job getting this all set up. We appreciate all your efforts. She'll put you all in a breakout room. And the discussion topic for the breakout rooms will be of the two following discussions. The first one would be, think of a recent high-stake moment, a critical meeting, tough feedback, or travel fatigue while making an important decision. What signs told you that you were operating in a type 1 threat or defensive state? And what could have you done or did do to shift yourself or your team back towards type 2 curiosity or opportunity? I think that's your cue in now, Maria.
Yep, everybody's moving now to their own breakout rooms.
I was just waiting for Robin's response. I was like,
yeah. That was the most exciting part, and now we missed it.
I want to hear Robin after she's still around. That's cool.
So what is happening now?
Yeah, I wanted to go back into that room because we wanted to finish off a few minutes. I was eager to hear Robin's comments, but it did. It's all right. We'll get back in that room again.
If I may jump in, we have 5 minutes to debrief. So if we want to hear Robin's answer to the question, feel free to unmute yourself.
Sure. My point was just going to be that I think it's equally as important that we recognize what state the people we're talking to are in. So scheduling meetings around, if particularly with customers or other senior execs that you're trying to get a positive response from, knowing where they might be on that chart and recognizing this isn't the right time to bring this up is really important.
Yeah, I missed that out in my presentation because we spoke about this yesterday, Richard, isn't it? Don't sit.
Yeah.
We were saying, don't schedule the calendar based on the time. Schedule the calendar based on where that person's state is at, for example. That's yeah. Anybody else want to jump in here and give a debrief on what their discussions were about?
I can always talk, but I was in the same room.
That's right. You can share.
Creating a safe place is very important and there are different roles. And I've been thinking, especially with the customer and partner meetings, it's important that the people are there who can connect with the customer and create value together. And we have a person who he's so much fun to work with, but when it comes to customer meetings, he's not very talkative. But then suddenly he says one single phrase in the meeting, and it is spot on and really amazing. And then I was just yesterday discussing that there was a certain person who was in head of, so we use a local clean room here, and she was head of maintenance, and then tools go broken, and then people start calling. And she wasn't, so we need all kinds of people, and it is totally okay to be introvert and research mindset, and not everybody needs to be out there and sell and talk, and but when it comes to a role where you need to discuss with people, and they have fears and expectations and hopes and distress, then this requires a certain personality.
Yeah, but I think
selecting the role, sometimes it is nice to push yourself and try different roles, but sometimes it's just too much. But please, sorry, I interrupted you. Please go on.
No, it's a fair point, really fair point. And I mean, it goes back again, is analyzing the other person's state, right? Where they are, you know, sometimes, you know, you could be at an exhibition, for example, and you've got a whole bunch of people running up and down with all different type of egos and etc. Now the question is how do you balance to that type of individual, and did you catch them in the right mindset, right? And the toughest one is when it's like you know, you have some sort of friction with a customer or someone in the team. You know, sometimes it's just best to step away, you know, or time heals everything, right? I think these are you know, methodologies that we kind of forget that how the heart rate variability plays. You know, the most common form of death, of course, to date, and not to put this on a sour note, is stress. And stress is connected to heart rate variability. So if you don't know how to manage that, that's why some people are dropping like no tomorrow. So I think it's very important to understand and to respect how the body works. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been wearing these smart devices, so it's all.
Oh, these come handy.
But
I highly, if there's one takeaway you should get from the show, I'm not associated with them, but get a smartwatch or whatever, or a Whoop that manages your heart rate very
and a funny thing is that it shows blue when you are charging yourself, and then when you're burning energy, it's orange. And usually you charge during night and then it just drops. But when we were 6 years ago preparing a business plan for 100 million FAB investment plan, it was pure relaxing and charging for me having these meetings. So with certain people, certain setting, you can be doing really intensive work, but still it is. So I think it's not about knowing yourself, and you can think about. I've been working in many companies and now running my own companies, and when you send certain people to the exhibitions, some people come with 200 business cards, some maybe 2, and it is okay to be like that. But what I heard that some consultancy companies, they run these Briggs-Myers personality tests, so 16 types of personalities. And of course, it's not really psychological, or you can think about, but at least it. So before starting a project, they all thought what is my personality type. And then you know in advance what to expect, what kind of reaction the other person, and what is your way of reacting to some unknowns, and so it helps the communication.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary, for sharing. Last person, is there anybody else that wants to share anything from their meeting, from their group, their briefing room?
I can add, Salah, just Richard and I had a really good conversation. Yes, just a little bit twist. We talked about going from type 1 to type 2, but what we also talked about is the science that, as you mentioned, resilient and agility, is how fast you recover, right? Because you could recover in a quick walk. The example we shared, it was like an overnight. So it's really blending in the two equations of, okay, I want to go from type 1 to type 2, but also knowing yourself and knowing your resilience level is one thing, but the agility, how fast you can recover. So that kind of that's the aspect we looked at.
Love that. Love that. Thank you for sharing, Najwa. I'm sure you've got many examples, Najwa, in your career of agility and resilience. Anybody else want to share last comments for Dr. Richard Johnson on the breakout rooms? All right, everyone's nice and secretive with their tools. Dr. Richard, please, whenever you're ready.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So again, thank you so much. Thank you so much again, Salah, for that. In terms of really enjoyed you setting up the stage in terms of mindset, very, very important. And the way I look at mindset in terms of leaders, which also determines the culture of organizations or meetings as well. And the way I like to look at in terms of leaders, just imagine in this room right now, if it gets to 75 degrees centigrade, what am I going to do? Nobody has to tell me anything. I'm going to start taking this off. How about if it drops to 60 degrees, I'm going to put it back on. So that's typically what leaders do. Leaders shape the atmosphere of a place without even saying anything. So if you're having a bad day, people feel it and they start getting careful. So again, that's the neuroscience, the X-frame that Salah was talking about and setting us up for that. And again, I want to thank the ISIG leadership team, Salah, for giving me the opportunity to be here today. Super excited for what is to come and to see everybody as well. Thank you for sharing your Tuesday with us. All right. So again, Salah has done the introduction, and I'm currently the Director of Business Operation for Advanced Packaging Substrate Division at Intel, and I write for Forbes on leadership strategy as well. So super excited to be here. And my leadership mantra is helping purpose-driven leaders make maximum impact, which is aligning strategy, execution, and culture together as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into it. All right, the leadership reality check. So one of the things that we are going to see from this perspective is, let me see what you're saying. Okay. According to McKinsey, 70% of change initiatives fail. 40 to 60% of executives fail within the first 18 months in a new role. Only 10% of organizations successfully execute their strategy. That's according to McKinsey. According to the scorecard balance report, 95% of employees don't understand their company strategy. These are abysmal numbers. So I'm just curious from everybody on the call, why do you think these numbers are holding on true? What do you think is responsible for it? Any thoughts, anyone? Looking at these numbers that we have.
People aren't committed.
People aren't committed. Okay, anybody else?
Well, I think most of the time the objectives of the organization and the change are not clearly communicated. So that leads to that people are not committed.
Okay, committed, fantastic. Okay. Communication, anybody else?
Yeah, I think the level of uncertainty.
Okay, uncertainty as well. Okay, fantastic. And again, not a right or a wrong, but one of the things that we see when you look into the data, it's not because the executives were not competent. It was not because the leadership team was inexperienced or immature. It wasn't because the strategy itself had an issue. It wasn't because there were execution boo-boos. Of course, that happens. But you won't believe that the major reason why this strategy or execution fails, leaders fail within the first 18 months, is because of one thing, mainly because of one thing, is the organizational complexity, and the code word for that is people and culture. People and culture. And I'll be sharing stories with us as somebody who has been in the room when strategic execution is going on, for somebody who facilitates the session, and that's where those things break down. But also there is good news. And the good news is that companies that make decisions quickly and effectively are twice as likely to outperform their peers. And that's why I'm really excited that the leaders on this call, you are taking time out to invest in yourself, to invest in your teams, and ultimately in the outcomes you see in your organizations as well. And just like Salah mentioned earlier on, we are living in a complex environment. It makes alignment even more difficult. It makes even leading people more difficult. So let's look at the current environment we're in. So just think of yourself as somebody on the ship right there. That can represent you. It can represent your organization. And you see the waves. And those are the waves of disruption, whether it's the political environment, whether it's the economics, whether it's the future of work, whether it's technology, is that AI, is that automation, layoffs, employees are worried, there's so much going on. And on top of that, the ecosystem is also going through its own change. Your organization is feeling that change as well in terms of your customers. And as a leader yourself, you're asking yourself, my purpose, is this aligned to the work that I'm doing? You're thinking up in terms of your family, you're thinking in terms of your environment. So there's just so much going on. But in the middle of disruption, it's not strategy that points you, that helps you out, because again, that's why we call it disruption. It's not execution. What really helps out is the power of the collective, which is your ability to work with and through people. So just calling it out, leaders or organizations are not failing mainly because of strategy. They are not failing mainly because of the execution. They are really failing because they're not able to align with members of their leadership team. They're not able to align with the organizations as well. So again, just very quickly, one or two people, when you look at your own situation, what is the biggest thing keeping you up at night? If you just look at whether is it the external factors, the ecosystem, organization, or something personal, anyone, what's the biggest thing keeping you up at night? Let's be generous. We learn more from each other. So I'm just one person. Let's be generous. Okay. Any one person?
I can say that for me it's the ecosystem, because we operate in a difficult environment of shared clean room. So we are not the control of our own tools, and we need to do manufacturing. So ecosystem.
Oh, ecosystem, nice. So I have a gift of calling on people. Kristen, what do you think? What's the biggest thing keeping you up at night?
Well, I think organization for me, the structure, understanding. I mean, if you're in a big multinational organization, just being aware of who is responsible for what at any given time can also be challenging, especially if you're growing into a leadership role like I am.
Oh, fantastic. All right, Rob. So even those who are not on video, I'm going to be coming to you too, so watch out. Okay, so Rock as well. Anything, what's the biggest thing showing up for you?
I would say depends on the challenge of the day or a week, but looking at this, I would say that sometimes the ecosystem, organization, and from leader circle, there are some things that keep me awake.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, everyone. One thing that is common in all the circles that you are seeing on the screen is there are people in all of those things. They're involved in it. So let's just hold that at the back of our minds. So when we look also at, when we now look in terms of the three levers of strategic decision making, regardless of whatever level or chain you are in the organization, we can look at strategic decision making as succeeds when leaders make good decisions from a set of options that drive collective action and meaningful results. So just keeping it, let's just keep it, call it what it is. Leaders face three challenges. The first one is strategy. Are we choosing the right road? Do we have the right goal? The second one is execution. Are we running well on it? Are we aligned? The third one, and organizations typically do the strategy and the execution, they spend a lot of time with it. The third one is where the rubber hits the road, is relationships. Are we bringing others with us? And there's this Nigerian proverb that says, if you want to walk fast, then you're going to walk alone. But if you want to walk far, then you have to walk with the village. So in order for our execution, our strategy to become executionally successful, we have to be able to work with and through people. So I said earlier on, most organizations focus on strategy, choosing the right road. and executing, running well on it. But we also seen that 70% of those efforts fail. So if there are things I want us to take away from today is, yes, you spend a lot of time in the strategy room. Yes, you spend a lot of time executing, looking at your KPIs, your metrics, your dashboard, and all of that. But what ultimately amplifies your success is asking the question, from a relationship perspective, am I bringing others with me? Let me just quickly give a quick example. Now, everybody knows Salah, but again, many of you are seeing me for the first time. So let's just do, again, let's quickly do a quick experiment. You know Salah, but you're not particularly close to him, but you know him. You've not met me before. Realistically, so you meet both of us at a train station and we both ask you for $100. None of us might get it, but who is likely to get that money? Is it Salah or is it myself? Likely. So just quickly, who is likely to get it, Salah or myself? Melvin Delois, who is likely to get it? Melvin.
Should be
Melvin
Salah.
with us? It should be Salah. I won't take it personally. Don't worry. I don't judge. Okay. William, who is likely to get it? Salah or Richard?
Richard,
okay.
I give you 100 because Salah would ask for 1,000.
Okay. But keep it. Okay, keeping it at 100. Okay, one more person. Robin, who is likely to get it? Robin, how about Bumi, Kayode, who is likely to get it? Is this Salah or myself? Najwa, who is likely?
My money is on Salah. My money is on Salah.
Again, not taking this personally. Now the question is why? Because of our time, I've asked this question several times. If Salah doesn't give you your money back, or if he said something, you can reach out to Hamid and say, Hamid Hazimi, hey, tell Salah to make sure I get my money back, right? You can reach out to the Semiconductor. There are people you can reach out to, but for Richard, you're like, I don't know if I'll ever see this guy again. So there's a trust component. So what you have just said is when people do not trust you, they are not going to place a big bet on you. When people do not trust you, they are not going to, if they can't trust you with $100 of their money, why would they trust you with a strategy, a big promotion, an opportunity? So it goes back to that aspect of trust. So relational alignment is trust, communication, and shared ownership. So just something for us to think about. And the other thing I'll just close on this slide with is when we think in terms of working with people, the strategy is very cerebral, is very head, mindset type thing. Execution is with the hands. The relationships is touching the heart. So when you have leaders who are able to inspire the mind, who are able to touch the heart, they move the hands to action. If the leaders don't move the hands to action, what do? They move the feet, people walk away, and people resist as well. So on our next slide, so now the question is, how do leaders shape this environment? How do they create a place whereby people want to align or not align? And McKinsey did a study several years ago, and after interviewing about 1,000 decision makers, and they came to 5 labels that leaders usually assume. And the first is the catalyst, somebody who drives fast action. The other one is the guardian, projects values and long-term health. So they just don't want to change for changing's sake. The visionary pushes for radical change. The flexible leader adapts very quickly, and the motivator inspires engagement. While none of this is better than the other, but every leader comes into a room with their own experience, with their own background, with their own complexity. The question is that what the team needs? So as leaders, we need to be asking ourselves the question. It's not, I have a tendency to go for a default, but is that what the team needs in order for us to be successful? Remember, we just established that if people do not trust you, they are not going to place a big bet on you. So if people are not able to connect with the leader, or the leadership team is not in sync, then it's going to be difficult to be aligned. Remember, it's not strategy that fails. It's not the execution that fails. It's typically the people connection as well. So one of the things, and how do we begin to bridge that, is something I call the aligned framework. Like I said, have had the opportunity to coach Fortune 500 executives, leaders of companies before, whether it's been in the room or been on the coaching side. So I came up with these 7 questions that leaders can ask themselves and reflect on in order for them to really align with people from a purpose and a values-based perspective. And it's 7 questions, and it's going with their line. The one is, are we anchored in purpose? Are we on the same mission? Are we on the same page? Are we aligned? In terms of our values, what principles must we hold when pressure rises? Very critical. Who must be in the room for us to succeed? For this project to be successful, who are those teams that we need to involve? Do our actions prove what we believe? In terms of the feedback loops, what are we learning and how are we adapting? What are we learning from our customers, whether it's your customer advisory board? What are we learning from our employees? What are we learning from the boots on the ground? Extremely important. How do we engage tension? How do we hold conviction and curiosity in tension? Because 2 people might have very different opinions and ideas, and both of them, it's possible for them to be right as well. And also, how do we design our next move? Is our next move true to who we are becoming? So when decisions are made in the boardroom, when decisions are made in the leadership table, leaders tend to think that all of us are on the same page. But what you begin to see from my experience is things begin to break down into 4 zones. In the bottom left, looking in terms of strategic clarity and commitment, in the bottom left, people are disconnected. People are waiting for direction instead of creating this. Think of an organization who has gone through a reorg several times and they're no longer sure whether they will fit into the company. So they're totally disconnected, they're disengaged. On the fragmented side of things, people are moving very fast. But the thing is, they are seeing things very differently. They are moving in silos. They all have a difference of what success looks like. Let's look at the complacent zone. People, in terms from a strategic clarity perspective, they get it. But when it comes to terms of execution, they don't have any strong sense of ownership. And this could be due to the fact of conflicting priorities, drained of resources. Then the last one is what I call the flow zone, whereby people have a huge sense of ownership, people have strategic clarity, and they begin to move. So ultimately, especially with your long-term stakeholders, you definitely want to be in the flow zone. When we talk in terms of shared ownership, if I rented a car, I think Salah drives a Bugatti. So, and he has to get one, he has an option. He rents a Bugatti, he has a Bugatti at home, and he has just one garage, and he has to pack one of those cars into the garage. Which one is he going to put in the garage? Is it the rented one or is it his personal one? It's going to be his personal one, because he has a sense of ownership towards it. So I think the key takeaway is that people don't just do things because the leader said so. People do that because they have a sense of ownership. And that involves touching the head, inspiring the heart, and ultimately moving the team to action. So one of the things that as leaders we need to be thinking about on your teams right now, where's the energy? Are people disconnected? Are they fragmented? Or are they just complacent, or are they really in the flow zone? So just something as leaders, something we need to think about. And in my last slide, before we just open this up for discussion, is which I call the relational leadership in actions, the behaviors that turn strategy into shared ownership. And the first one, for me, is leading from self-awareness. Yes, you can be aligned with strategy, you can be aligned with execution, you can be aligned with other people, but as leaders, we have to be aligned with ourselves. You have to be aligned with who you are in terms of, as a person, what's your purpose? What's your mission? And what's your vision? Are they aligned? The reason why it's important for them to be aligned is when you think of a laser is very powerful because it has one wavelength, it's aligned. When we align who we are and what we do, we are coming from a place of conviction. And when a leader leads from a place of conviction, that itself fuels connection. Connection fuels alignment, alignment fuels execution. Then we call it the place of authenticity. When I'm at work, when I'm off work, it's the same person. The other place that we want to lead from is we want to make sure we are leading from a place of connection. We want to get to know our team members. on a leadership team, you can have the leader who is a visionary, but you might have other people like on the slide I showed earlier, who might be maybe the motivator, it might be the catalyst, all on the same team. If the leader is a visionary, drives bold chain, wants to move fast, but other members of the team are more of the guardian. They just don't want to change for changing's sake. If the leader doesn't take enough time to understand and get to know those people, then you begin to look at these people are late adopters. We need to move fast. We need to drive strategy. These people are holding me up. And if you're not careful, you think of getting them out of the team, or you just push them aside. But leadership is being able to see life from the other person's perspective. It's seeking first to understand before you are understood. The other thing, and again, let's remember, we're focusing on the people side of strategic decision making. And that is where the ball typically drops, leading with inclusion. So when we look at as leaders as well, when I say leading with inclusion is, as a leader, you're super busy. You're on the road, you're traveling. Sela said he's traveled about 300,000 miles already this year. He's super busy. What that means is he can't get into the weeds of everything. That means he has to rely on his leadership team to be able to get their perspective, to be able to make the right decisions. So as a leader, your executive office is your next best thing, whether that's your admin, your chief operating officer, your chief of staff, the HR person, the finance person you are working with, because all of them bring in different perspectives. And if you don't respect their opinions or you always override them, then one person shouldn't be in the room. Very important. You have to surround yourself and also asking yourself the question, when last did these people, which you should see as your equals, when last did they challenge you? When last did they say, hey, I don't agree with that. You know, Christian, I like that part of it, but I don't think it's going to work. Do they have that courage? If people are not challenging you respectfully as a leader, then you need to ask yourself, what environment am I creating? Because if you don't have the right decisions or the right information, you're not going to make the right decisions as well. The other thing for us is to lead with humility. Extremely important. Leadership is to serve, not to be served. As people have said, the leader goes last. The leader speaks last. You want to hear other people's voices before you bring yours into the room. The other one is lead for legacy. So again, I said leaders are always on the road. Leaders are always super busy and a lot of things. But the truth is, if you don't develop the next generation of leaders, right, a time is going to come, whether you retire, you win the lottery, or you're going to be forced out. If the leaders under you, you've not equipped and developed them, they're not going to take your spot. If you're not developing the next round of leaders, whether through sponsorship, mentorship, and equipping them in the organization, the leaders will go somewhere else to people who they know. What does that mean? All the hard work, your sleepless nights, your blood, sweat, and tears is just going to go away because you've not made time to build the next generation of leaders as well. So this is about your legacy. So it's important we are fostering and creating that time as well. Then the other thing as well is leading with systems awareness. And before I just get to that, I'm thinking of two stories right now in my mind, whether from a coaching experience or something I've seen or observed, somewhere in between. There was a particular, and I've seen this quite a bit, whether leaders get a new organization and they got that job because their strategy was excellent, execution, extremely amazing. But they joined these organizations, whether internal or external, and within 18 months, some of them less than that, they failed. Why? Because they came in with the mindset is, hey, I'm here because they didn't say it out. It's like, I got this job because you guys couldn't figure it out. But the one thing they didn't know is that the people who they met on those roles, they knew where the bodies were buried. They knew where the things were. And ultimately, these leaders failed. The other leaders stopped speaking up. And it was almost like they were waiting for this new leader to fail. And 9 out of 10 times, that was what happened. So it's very important from the humility perspective. Then leading with systems awareness, one thing I've also observed is, again, leaders are super busy. A lot of the information you hear has been so much sugar-coated that you cannot even taste the medicine itself. It's unbelievable. So what leaders need to do, you have to pulse your organization, whether it's through surveys, whether it's leader connection sessions, service with your partners, with your customers, with your employees. So you are looking at the organization 360. So you now compare that with what your leadership team is saying versus what people are experiencing on the ground. These fundamental things are critical and key for leaders to be successful. So again, what were we saying today? We're talking about strategic decision making. Leaders focus on strategy, they focus on execution, but 70% of those leaders fail. It's the leaders that focus on the third piece, which is the third wheel, which is the relational alignment. They're able to connect strategy, they touch the head, they're able to do execution, they move the hands, but all that comes through with leaders who touch and motivate the hearts of their people. So again, so that's any quick comments. I know we'll be going to our breakout rooms. We want to finish on time. So Maria will need to adjust the time accordingly. So, and my last closing thought is just leadership today isn't about having the right answers, it's about creating the right connections. When relationships are strong, alignment follows. And when alignment follows, execution accelerates. So any quick thoughts, anything anybody wants to add? Zan, thank you for coming on screen. I think I did something right to have warranted you coming on screen. Any quick thoughts, anyone? Any quick thoughts? So if you want to continue the conversation or you want to connect on LinkedIn, please scan the QR code. But I'm eager, any quick thoughts, anything that resonated with you? Or like, Richard, I don't totally agree with this. Doesn't make sense to me. Any quick thoughts? Come on, people, be generous. Stella is very generous. And I'm told the ICIG.
I can go, Dr. Richards, since we already connected the trust and, together.
No, hey, but you put your money on Salah, though. I didn't forget that. I know.
Did, but the time is not over yet. I mean, we still have the next session. Maybe you ask me at the end again and see. No, to me, it's people and culture. I think if I summarize it, you said it at the beginning, and truly, we can do all those great strategy sessions. We do quite a bit of them every year. We have a macro plan. We do all of that. But if we don't take people with us in the journey and the culture is not there to embrace it and support it from the top down, it's definitely where it will, it's at risk of breaking down. So my takeaway is people and culture. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else before we move in?
Yeah. And may I add, Richard, so very well presented. And what you just said in terms of culture, I remember this quote. It says, it takes a whole village to raise a kid, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a good idea, you need to have that kind of emphasis to your village to increase that kind of operating bubble you are in and get those people around you helping you to raise that kid, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so Maria, do you want to, so again, this is our time for us to connect, and I want us to focus on behaviors. Again, we can talk strategy, behavior. So Maria, are you ready to get us into our breakout rooms? Whoop, whoop, whoop. Let's go.
Absolutely, Dr. Richard. Can you just flash the topic of discussion for
yeah, absolutely. Whatever you want, Maria, whatever.
Thank you.
So feel free to take a snapshot from your phone. So
right. I am going to open the rooms now.
And also not even just only focusing on what might be contributing to it, but what's a behavior you can adopt, also looking forward that can help you move your team forward as well. Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're just gone. Where was I?
Oh, wow. When the conversations are
I'll save it for the next episode, for the next session.
Okay. All right. So just maybe one or two people quickly to do a debrief so people can go and start the rest of their day. Kristen Koch, welcome. Anything from you? Anything you'd like to share? Love to hear your voice.
Oh, well, we just had a good discussion about big and small organizations here and the challenges that we're facing here. related to different management styles and also related to how to communicate clearly with the team. So that's one of the points which was clearly highlighted as a challenge here in our room. Communication and the trust within the team to make sure you're building up the right relationships, which is probably easier if you're working in a company with 10 or 15 people, which is more of a challenge if you're working in a large organization, and how to deal with that. So this was basically the point where our time has ended.
Okay. No, thanks for sharing, Kristen. Anybody else? Zan, have we had your voice today? I think.
No, we haven't. I was actually in the same room as Christian. So yeah, everything that Christian said, and also we were discussing, or we were touching the topic of translating the requirements into goals and instructions for the teams. So yeah, that.
All right. Is Melvin, are we going to have the privilege to hear your voice today, Melvin? Okay, so I think I know why Melvin is not speaking. So Kayode, are we going to hear your voice?
Melvin is actually one of our moderators.
Yeah, yeah, that's the yeah, I got it back. Kayode, anything?
Yeah, for me, I'm sorry, I was in transit, so I just got into the office now.
Okay.
Yeah, so you wanted me to say something about
like were you in the breakout rooms?
I was in the breakout room. That was when I was trying to settle into my office. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so anything that resonated with you in terms of from the breakout room session?
Yeah, so basically the second one I joined briefly, we were trying to talk about interacting with people and more or less like managing situations. So what I think, just resonated in my mind is that it's always good to, try and understand the why, why maybe some people might actually take some actions, because if we more or less like just jump the gun and just react to a particular unfavorable situation, you might not really understand the root cause. That person might actually be having a bad day. There could be some additional factors that could be responsible. And looking inwards too, we could, maybe that person has interacted with us in the past and we had actually given them a wrong disposition, and we're trying to retaliate. So my own take is just that, trying to sit down and understand why somebody reacted in a particular way could actually be a very good way to resolve the issue. Of course, I'm not justifying negative dispositions, but being amicable and being the peacemaker is always a very good way to display leadership.
All right, thank you. Again, we could keep having this conversation, but I know we want to get back to, we need to get back to work. So again, really thank you for joining us. But if there's one thing we want to take away from here is asking yourself, I could be the strategy king or queen. I could be the execution king, queen, or prince, however you want it, or princess, however you want to call it. But am I connecting with people? Is it red? Is it yellow? Or is it green? If it's red, how do I flip it to yellow? If it's yellow, how do I flip it to green? And it comes with, how do I inspire the head? How do I touch the heart? And when I do that, I move the hands to action. It starts with how you start your meetings. It starts with your stakeholder engagement. And I think if we do that, our strategies are up to rise. On that note, I'm going to pass it on to my facilitator extraordinaire, Salah Nasiri himself. Thank you so much.
Ooh. Yeah, well, thank you again. I don't know how we started off with like 40 and then people, well, I think it was like past 50 at one point. No, but thanks for staying to the end.
They had to make decisions, so
they had to make decisions.
It's strategic decision making.
They went from type 2 to type 1. Yeah, look, I think this was very enjoyable. I think at the end of the day, I know multiple people here, great leaders in their companies, and I think it's very important to have these type of closed door discussions to see and share what's the problems that we're facing on a day-to-day basis, right? I think there's so much you can learn from the practical perspective, and there's so much you can learn from the theory perspective. But combining the both, that's when we really get to grow in our careers. So yeah, I mean, we'll share a barcode with you, or a link. Maria will send it to you. And please fill in that survey, because then it gives us the guidance on what we can cover on the next webinar that we're going to have together. And of course, you know, there's multiple great leaders here that I know on this call. More than welcome to chime in and join us and lead in the next webinar with Dr. Richard. I'll take a step back. Yeah, again, Dr. Richard, thanks again for that great presentation, showing us the alignment of our companies and what we need to do. I mean, like I said, I love that flow graph that you put up with fragmented, flow, disconnect, and complacent is something that we should all look at. Yeah, some people in here, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's either going to make you say to yourself, right, I know what I need to do in my company. Or for some of you, it might be, damn, I need to get the hell out of this company. It can mean two different things, right? So I think at the end of the day, you know, as it's been mentioned twice already, it takes a village to raise a kid at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, it takes a village to raise a great leader at the end of the day. Nobody made it by themselves. So I'm glad that we've made this happen. I'm glad that we made it work. If you're interested in leading the next webinars and sharing your leadership perspective, at the end of the day, the organization that I lead with a great team, we follow 3 very vital principles, and that's curiosity, generosity, and community. 3 very simple values. And that is something that I'd like to grow within us. And the goal will be to get us all together in person, which is the fun part, right? And then we can find out how we can decrease the serotonin in the evening. But on a serious note, thank you again for joining. I really appreciate it. And we'll schedule the next one for the next month. I thought this was a great success. And yeah, if you've got any advice, what else can we do? Do you want the break rooms longer? Is there a certain topic that you want to go a bit deeper? We can talk about communication. We can talk about finance if you want. I'm going to leverage some of my Stanford professors to join in. If you have some other professors that you know who you've worked with or studied with, please send them our way. We'll get them involved. All right. And yeah, if any follow-ups, reach out to Dr. Richard. I'm traveling tomorrow. Maria as well. Maria, by the way, thank you for setting this up. Melvin, thank you for managing the back end for us, making sure everything runs smooth. I wish you all a great week ahead, and see you at the next webinar next month before Christmas.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Yeah.
Take care all. Bye for now. Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.